Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Greg, what are you drinking for your coffee today?
Coffee. This is Coffee, Culture, and the Capital, which means we have to drink coffee on this show. Not always. Sometimes we drink other liquids, but today I am drinking a K-Cup Starbucks dark blend with artificial vanilla flavoring and half and half.
Ooh, there you go.
What about you?
I am today. It's from a coffee shop called Lion and Lamb. It's a Christian coffee shop. Get it? Lion and Lamb.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's kind of cool. They have like really cool little merch. But I've been drinking like just plain black coffee lately, and I was like, I want a fun drink. So I went and got a pumpkin chai with a couple shots of espresso in it, but it kind of just tastes like their normal chai. Doesn't really have a pumpkin taste to it. But that's my choice for the day. But
now on to the culture.
Now on to the culture and the capital. Man, oh man, is there crazy stuff happening in the state of California. Proposition 3 is going to be on the ballot. It's an election year, and that means there's propositions, and propositions can get little confusing. You hear all these different numbers, you get your ballot. Sometimes, honestly, the explanation doesn't even make sense. Like, you're reading the explanation, you're like, wait, I don't agree with this, so does that mean I vote yes? Does that mean I vote no? It can get very confusing, but Prop 3 is the proposition we've been watching, Greg. What is Prop 3, and how did it get onto the ballot? I know a lot of people have been asking that question. How did this proposition get onto the ballot?
Well, this particular proposition was put on by the legislature. There's two ways. You can either have the legislature put it on, or you can gather signatures. And if you get enough signatures, you can get a ballot an initiative on the ballot for voters to decide. That's the only way to change the Constitution of the state of California. This is the highest law in the land, so this is going to be have more, authority than all the other statutes. And this Prop 3 is about marriage again. We are redefining marriage. You know, if you have any history here in California, about 2008, California had a initiative on the ballot, Prop 8, and that initiative defined marriage because the courts were changing the definition of marriage around the country. They were redefining what it meant to be married, what a marriage relationship was. We used to not have to do that because everybody knew what a marriage was. A man and a woman commit themselves together for life, for the beginning of a family. That's what a marriage relationship was. It was unique in that sense. It started families. But as you know, some folks were upset with that definition, and they, instead of changing it legislatively, they started having the courts do it for them. So to prevent that, voters here in California decided to put a clear definition in the Constitution that a marriage is one man and one woman. And so that made it. It survived. Majority of folks voted for that back in 2008. But now, after the Supreme Court in 2015 knocked that down, said that the Supreme Court, our federal Constitution, said that law was unconstitutional. Although the federal Constitution says nothing about marriage, definitions are always left up to the states. Now, it made marriage, same-sex marriage, legal in every country, not every state. But that language is still in our state constitution. One man, one woman. That language is still there, and now we are going to take it out with this Prop 3, but we're not just removing it; we are replacing it, and making. It's a simple thing. It says marriage is now going to be a fundamental right, and it doesn't provide any definitions of what marriage is. So that's going to have profound effect. It doesn't limit it to one person or two people. It doesn't limit it to people who aren't related to each other. It doesn't limit it to simply adults. It opens it wide open. And so anyone who, but we still have statutes limiting marriage. Our statutes still say, only two people can get married. But once we put this in the Constitution for the state, and we say marriage is a fundamental right, somebody's going to come up and say, hey, it's not fair that, I want to marry these three people at once, or I want to marry, my sister, or a father wants to marry his daughter, or two kids want to get married, or we want to do polygamy, or polyamory, group marriage. There's no limit. And so California Family Council, if you go to your ballot, which the Secretary of State is going to put out a voter guide, and that's what you see up if you're watching us online. You see the voter guide that's going to be sent to every voter in California. And if you go to the page where it talks about Prop 3, you're going to see the California Family Council along with no, it just says us at this point. But the American Council also provided opposition language. But you'll see us listed there as in opposition. And I'm just going to read to you what our con argument is against Proposition 3. It says it removes all rules for marriage, opening the door to child marriages, incest, and polygamy. It changes California's constitution, even though same-sex marriage is already legal. By making moms and dads optional, it puts children at risk. This careless measure harms families and society. Vote no on Prop 3. And then it also lists a website here. It's californiafamily.org/Proposition 3. So if you go to that website right now, and we have it pulled up on here on the screen, you will see our website that gives you all of our arguments, has some legal documents from various attorneys who are explaining the impact of making marriage a fundamental right with no definitions, and provides a press conference we had and some other events, as well as a webinar that we just put together recently talking about the impact of this proposition. So all that information is out there, and we're starting to get calls from the press, and people are going to start turning and wanting to understand this proposition. But surprisingly, a lot of churches aren't talking about it. Christians aren't talking about it, and they should be. This is not just removing language from the Constitution. It's replacing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I just want to point out, like we had on the screen in a second ago, and we'll pull it back up, that when you see against it, it says Jonathan Keller, who's the president of California Family Council, our P.O. box, so the address for that, our website, and everything like that. If you are a believer and you're listening to the podcast right now, you know that we're, by saying no to this and standing up against it, we're going to be facing we're facing evil. That's what it is, by pushing back and standing up for these biblical values, standing up for honestly common sense. It's a common sense idea to vote no. As Greg said, this opens the door for so many things. And so as a Christian, our P.O. box is on there. We might be getting some hate mail for this. And so if you want to send a donation to that P.O. box out of gratitude for us being a voice for this, feel free to go ahead and do that. But Greg, Proposition 3, like you said, okay, it can open the door up for polygamy. Right now in California, on birth certificates, instead of saying mother and father to be on the name of the baby's birth certificate, it now says parent 1, parent 2. I mean, that means we can see this open up to seeing birth certificates start saying parent 4, parent 3, parent 4, parent 5, parent 6, correct?
Right, because there's going to be an argument, well, it's discriminatory. My child has 3 parents, and why can't those be listed? Right. I mean, if a marriage can have two people the same sex, you can have two men on the birth certificate. Why can't you have three? I mean, what are you going to say? What argument are you going to make once you allow two people of the same sex on a birth certificate, or two people on the same sex have be on a marriage certificate? What are you going to say when 3, 4, 5, or 6 people want it? You've given in, and marriage becomes nothing. And the people who are going to be hurt the most about are kids, right? Every person longs to know their mother, and they long to know their father, right? Even kids who are adopted are always curious, always want to know, who is my birth father, who is my birth mother. Why? Because it's just part of who we are. God created us um, to come from a man and a woman, right? That's how God created us to reproduce that way. And we're throwing that all away. We're throwing that model of a family out the window. And we think nothing, this is all about what adults want, without really caring what the impact on our future generations of kids who aren't going to know who their mother or their father is, or either or, right? It's just chaos. And it's something. If you see something bad, you got to stand up and say something, right? And so that's what we hope to do on this initiative. It's not about hating those we disagree with. No, it's about holding up a beautiful ideal that God has set up to benefit everyone. You don't have to be a Christian to know that there's something ultimately beautiful about a man and a woman committing themselves together for life to start a family. That is one of the most beautiful things ever.
Yes. And people might think, oh, you're just fear mongering, all that. Absolutely not. Proposition 3, the language in it is very vague, which is why it opens the door for all of these things. So, Proposition 3 opens up the door for polygamy, child marriage, incestuous marriage, and so much more. So, this is not fear mongering. This is the reality of what it opens the door up for. But with that, and like Greg said, he mentioned the website earlier, you can visit proposition3.net, and that's how you'll get access to this website. But with that, that's what's crazy is going on at the Capitol and what came from the Capitol. Now let's talk a little bit about the culture. If you have been paying attention to our blog post, you would have seen that there is currently a male player on the women's volleyball team at San Jose State. So this is a Division I school, and there is a male on it. One, there's a lot of issues there, but let's dive into the fact that with volleyball, a men's volleyball net is 7 inches taller than a women's volleyball net. Is that because the men train harder? No. A lot of the men grow taller than the women. They have better ability to jump higher than the women. They have a stronger hit when they spike the ball down. And so now this man has full access to spike the ball onto females on the opposing team, play on the women's team. Right now, San Jose State is 6-0, so they're currently undefeated, which, it's not hard to win when you have a male playing full-time on the team, spiking the ball down at speeds that are completely unbelievable. And so this male, he goes by the name of Blair Fleming. His name is Braden. That's the name that he was given at birth, Braden Fleming. And he actually transferred over to San Jose State. He used to play at Coastal Carolina University, which is in South Carolina. But he moved over here and transferred over to the California team right before the South Carolina passed the Save Women's Sports Act. And so the timing of the transfer definitely suggests that the new legislation may have played a role in his decision to leave the state, because he wouldn't be allowed to play on women's teams in South Carolina. And so if you're watching on the screen, you can see this video or this picture that Icons, they do a lot in standing up for the protection of women's sports, that they posted on their Twitter. And you can see Braden, as when he identified as Braden, and he is Braden, that's him as a boy, and then Blair, and that is him now identifying as a girl, and is again fully allowed to play on the team. And there is a crazy video that's been going around on Twitter that I would love for you guys to all check out. Okay, so that was, and we're gonna play it again, but I wanted you to just see it first. That was him spiking the ball down into a woman's face on the other team. And I'm gonna play it again, but now when I play it this time, watch how it's the game point, and so you can't see that necessarily on the video, but that's why everyone rushes the court, because it's the game point. I played volleyball. I played club volleyball when I was younger. If it was the match point, it was so exciting when you won and everyone rushed court and you're like, woo, we just won that. Notice how even the girls on his own team kind of like don't jump. The girls currently on the court don't jump to celebrate at first because it's like, hold up, this girl just had the ball spiked in her face by this man. So we're going to play it again and kind of check out their reactions there.
Yay, we won.
Like, it's insane. And like, she got spiked in the face, and luckily it seems like she got back up and was okay. But we saw this happen to Peyton McNabb, a high school volleyball player, where she got spiked, the ball spiked in her face by a male, and left her half of her face partially paralyzed. It was like a year long of concussions, memory loss, all these issues. And another part of that video, when Braden jumps up to spike the ball, it is like his hips are at the top of the net. I played club volleyball. I never once saw a girl's hips be over the top of the net. Like, that is insane. And that is why, just one of the many reasons why males don't belong in women's sports.
No, and I just don't understand the logic of this. You know, we prevent college sports teams and players from using steroids. And why do we do that? Because we know that giving women testosterone artificially boosts their muscle mass, right? And same thing with men. It artificially boosts, you're giving them a hormone that empowers them. It makes it unfair to the opposite team. So, but we have complete blinders on when we think about the advantages a male body has over a female body, right? It has nothing to do with the person's skill or ability to train or anything. It's just their biology, their hormones that have been gone through and enabled their muscle mass to grow and enable them to get taller. And it's so ridiculous. We can recognize one is unfair, but we can't recognize this is unfair. So we've got to get back to sanity. We are not thinking logically anymore. It just looks so much like hypocrisy. It is hypocrisy. And yet we keep doing it because we don't want to be called a hater, or you really will disagree with how these folks identify. Their feelings determine their gender and not their biology. But that makes no sense in any logical medical way, right?
Absolutely.
So hopefully we're turning a corner here.
Yes, hopefully people are waking up because they're seeing this firsthand happen, not just randomly, but literally everywhere. I mean, even specifically for volleyball, a study published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine shows that male volleyball players average 50% more power in their spike compared to female players. And so there's no fair competition when men are allowed into women's sports. And Redux, which is a group that does a lot of reporting on these issues, they went and got some interviews at the game. And so a parent from the opposing team during one of their matches spoke to Redux, and they wanted to stay anonymous, but that parent of the volleyball player playing against Braden stated that he jumped higher and hit harder than any woman on the court. There was no other female athlete on the court that day that could compare with Blair's athleticism. He also had very narrow hips. I took notice of how he was dressed with a longer shirt in the front as well. And so this is why we need to fight. This is why we need to pay attention to legislation, because this didn't just happen out of the blue. California has allowed legislation that's allowed boys into girls sports since 2013. It was AB 1266 that was signed into law in 2013. And so we're going to keep doing all we can to expose the evil that's happening because of it and stand up against it.
Yep. Just shows you who you vote for makes a difference in your children's lives. All right? You love your kids, you love your neighbors, then you're going to care about voting. You're not going to say, oh, politics, it's just dirty. It's just, I don't want to be involved. Well, this is what happens when you just don't be involved and you let your government run amok.
Absolutely. And so, again, go ahead and head to proposition3.net to learn more about Prop 3. Share that webinar around, get informed. But with that, we will see you all next time.